Now, Philip Lon from the think tank Respublica is here to tell us what's caught his eye. We're going to speak to you in a minute, Philip. Thank you very much for joining us. But first, let's have a quick look at the front covers, and we're going to start with The Observer.
Indeed, front page of The Observer this morning has a picture of Barack Obama, who we've just been hearing from, of course, talking to Hugh Edwards. Hillary Clinton, though, has waded into the EU referendum debate. She apparently telling Britain, you should stay in the European Union.
And then in the Sunday Telegraph this morning, a picture of David Cameron and Barack Obama on a golf buggy. But then the main story here is about pregnant women, saying heavily pregnant women and cancer sufferers are among more than 125,000 NHS patients whose hospital treatment has been postponed amid the chaos of the first ever all-out strike by junior doctors.
The Sunday Times has also got a picture of Barack Obama on the front page, urging young people to vote in the EU referendum. Their main story, though, it's the one they generate every year, but it continues to fascinate. The Sunday Times Rich List is out today. The super rich, you'll be sorry to hear, hit by a slump in fortunes this year.
And in the Sunday Mirror this morning, a story about Prince, of course, a ceremony for him yesterday, and we can see a picture of his sister there, who's making her way into a car after the ceremony.
Philip, let's get inside the papers. Legal aid cuts, a travesty, it says in The Observer, leading to DIY defence. Just explain.
Well, I just thought it was an interesting little piece in The Observer, not least because, you know, the Prime Minister has talked about the need to correct what's wrong in the criminal justice system. We have a reformer in Michael Gove who has already spoken, you know, rightly and movingly about what needs to be done. But something is happening that isn't good. We have over 25% of people who come up before magistrates' courts not being represented. There was one case, according to the report, where the defendant didn't say anything down the video link, was sent to prison, and only afterwards they found out he was deaf. So we are, you know, fundamental to kind of British liberty and British justice is the idea of proper legal representation in court. And actually what we're finding is for the relatively poor, for those who can't afford it, access to law is now governed by wealth, and that can't be right. So I look forward to the government's proposals to actually address this, and it, you know, the attempt to cut legal aid has in fact stopped people getting access to legal services, and you know that can't be right, whatever point you are on the party political spectrum.
Another story which you've picked out here, which is in the Sunday Express, is about a BBC documentary looking at what happened to the MH17 flight, which was which tragically crashed over Ukraine, didn't it? And there's been lots of kind of what happened, and this is a new documentary with evidence suggesting a different theory to what people thought. Yeah,
this is interesting. I picked this out because there's an enormous amount of Russian propaganda, Russian finance propaganda being pumped through in the West. We know that the Russians are funding all sorts of political parties at the extremes. You know, the Front National in France have admitted their financing comes from Russia, and a lot of our media operations. One of the key points is who shot down this. It was a terrible tragedy. A Malaysian airliner was shot down over Ukraine. Established opinion has it that it was by a Russian anti-aircraft missile, but now we've got the BBC doing a documentary that tries to suggest it was a Ukrainian fighter. And it just tells you, I think, and why it's interesting for us is the messaging and the contestment over kind of what's happening with Russia, because Europe isn't only threatened on its southern border, it's threatened on its eastern border. And we have to take this with a pinch of salt, I think, and think, where does it come from and whose interest does it lie? But I look forward to seeing the documentary.
It's interesting they say Ukrainian fighter jet, it's not a Russian fighter jet.
It seems completely inexplicable to me, and from everything I know, and I do a lot of work in the area, they've fairly rock-solid evidence it was a Russian anti-aircraft missile. But look, let's read it. But I think it shows into sharp relief. We know that the Russian intelligence services are funneling money to Western political parties and to Western media outlets for political reasons.
And that documentary is going out on the 3rd of May on BBC Two at 9.
Right. The Times has got a story about Game of Thrones. explain?
Well, this is the real news, I think, this Sunday. Perhaps the most important inside story. What I liked about the article in the Sunday Times is it suggests that Jon Snow might not be dead. This isn't the Channel 4 news anchor.
Which was my first.
I don't want to disturb anyone.
Jolly good news, he's excellent.
At breakfast. It's actually that maybe dead doesn't mean dead in Game of Thrones, as I'm sure all your viewers know. Is he going to be resurrected by a high priestess? Will he come back through some other arcane way? It seems dreadfully depressing, because what Game of Thrones is about is essentially power without goodness. People who have no moral direction, just exercising rampage, death and murder. And Jon Snow was our one hope, I think, for a good ending. And now the poor guy's been massacred by his own men. So we all must hope he returns, living or dead. Come back.
Yeah,
Come back, Jon Snow.
He was on the sofa not that long ago. Obviously, the actor who plays the part.
And he was alive.
And he was definitely alive. But that's what everyone kept asking him: are you going to be alive?
And the thing is everyone's talking about his length of hair, because apparently he hasn't altered his haircut. So
yeah,
aficionados tell me that means that there's
means
still a role. There's still a role for him. He's still in
It's a good way to look at it.
It is.
In shape for the role, shall we say?
Thank you very much, Philip. Thanks for coming in to join us this morning.
Right.